So whenever we talk about college football recruiting, one of the best ways to think of it is how can you answer questions? And in the case of the Oklahoma Sooners, one of the major questions we have been consistently asking is, what will Brent Venables and company do with the interior defensive line and defensive line recruiting as a whole? And today, we need to talk about an answer that Oklahoma just got in four-star defensive lineman Jayden Jackson, who commits to the Oklahoma Sooners over the likes of the Texas Longhorns and Miami. And today, we need to talk about it. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes, N for no. Are you excited that Jayden Jackson commits to Oklahoma? Let me know what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you did enjoy the content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions do seem small, but they truly are massive to content creators such as myself, and we're on a push to 20,000 subscribers. I'd love to have you a part of this unbelievable community, but having said all that, let's jump right into this. And first and foremost, who is Jayden Jackson? And Jayden Jackson is a very gifted player who plays for IMG Academy. And one of the things I talk about consistently with schools like IMG is that if you can get guys that play for IMG, you have got to love it. They are already used to embracing competition, and that's exactly the type of environment Brent Venables is trying to cultivate with the Oklahoma Sooners. One where they embrace competition. That's what IMG does every single day. Jayden Jackson is practicing against guys that will play college football. He plays his games against guys that will play college football, and because of that, I think it gives them a leg up on the competition. Now, that's not to say that it's an infallible system, but it's just to say that they have already gotten used to embracing this mindset that every college out there will inevitably ask their prospects to embrace. But what do they get with Jayden Jackson? What about his athletic ability? Well, he stands 6'2", 300 pounds, and one of the reasons why I love this so much, he has got true nose tackle ability. If you turn on the film, this is a guy that can create havoc and anchor a defensive line. And if you've tuned into the channel at any point over the last few months, there's a good chance you've heard me talk about some of this stuff. While Oklahoma has been in on several big-time prospects, I've been really intrigued to see what they would do with the defensive line. And Jayden Jackson is a win where you can directly point to his ability and say, that's a guy that can come in and absolutely help us along this defensive line. This is a guy that can come in, anchor that nose tackle position, plug up holes, and allow linebackers to run free, which is exactly what the Brent Venables defense calls for, which is why I think this is such a compelling addition. But if you're asking me what else about this makes this a compelling addition, we have to turn our attention to none other than five-star defensive lineman and teammate of Jayden Jackson, David Stone. Because while David Stone and Oklahoma have had a long-standing relationship, and in no way, shape, or form, if Jayden Jackson would have chose Texas or Miami, the two other schools that many of the national recruiting analysts thought he may go to, if Jayden Jackson would have chose either of those, I don't think it would have hurt Oklahoma's chances at landing David Stone because of that long-standing relationship, but I certainly think it can help Oklahoma's chances of landing David Stone now that they have a teammate. Now that they have a guy where David Stone and Jayden Jackson have tweeted at each other before stating they would like to play together at the next level. Now that opportunity is right in front of them, and it's going to be interesting to see what all happens. But let's talk about the other schools in this equation, Texas and Miami, because Texas is in an interesting position. Bo Davis is a fantastic defensive line coach. We know he's an intense figure. That video went viral a few years ago whenever he first got to Texas, and while a lot of people were uncomfortable with it, personally, I thought there were a lot of truths he said in that video, uncomfortable truths, but truths that needed to be addressed because Texas was not in a good state. That's why they brought in this current staff to try and turn the program around. And so anytime Bo Davis comes and sits next to a defensive line prospect to recruit them, you know you have a battle on your hands. So Texas was absolutely a threat. But whenever we talk about Miami, there's something I haven't said for quite some time that I think needs to be said again. Miami is a super interesting team, and I am so excited to see what they continue to do under Mario Cristobal. But that being said, Mario Cristobal may need to send Brent Venables in edible arrangements or some flowers. And the reason why I say that, Brent Venables caught a lot of heat for how Oklahoma struggled this past season, and I get it. That's because Oklahoma historically has been an insane team. The winning they do there is wild, and so whenever we have an example of Oklahoma not winning to that standard, it's going to be something that we talk about. Meanwhile, Miami was more or less on shaky ground whenever Mario Cristobal got there. However, Brent Venables was a first-time head coach. Brent Venables took over a situation where Lincoln Riley left and Caleb Williams, who went on to win the Heisman Trophy, left as well. Oklahoma didn't have a quarterback. They didn't have a lot of the coaches that were acclimated to the players on roster, and even then, a lot of the players had turnover as well. And so Brent Venables caught all this heat from the national media. Meanwhile, mum is Miami. You don't hear a whole lot about what Mario Cristobal in Miami went through this previous season. Mario Cristobal is not a first-time head coach. It's two totally different situations, and this is coming from somebody who likes Mario Cristobal. I've been very forthright that I want Miami to do good, that I want Mario Cristobal to do good at Miami because I think it'd be better for college football and certainly the state of Florida. But it is an interesting thing to think about, that Brent Venables in Oklahoma caught all this heat for how their season went, and look, at some level deservedly so. Like I said, Oklahoma has gotten used to winning at a certain standard, so it is going to be a talking point whenever that standard isn't hit. That's just kind of what happens when you lay down successful expectations. When you don't meet those successful expectations, people talk about it. But I did find it notable that we gave more attention to a first-time head coach who had a ton of turnover to try and work through, and we didn't give as much attention to a guy that had been a head coach before, a guy that's notorious for recruiting at a high level, and a guy that they really struggled as well over at Miami. But I digress. At the end of the day, this is a fantastic addition for the Oklahoma Sooners because it hits a real need that we have talked about time and time again. And there were many out there that started to doubt Todd Bates, and I've remained steadfast. That's not the guy I would be doubting. Todd Bates is a fantastic defensive line coach. He can recruit with the best of them. You have got to give him time. I've said this on the podcast time and time again. Todd Bates was going into battles, going up against Ohio State, going up against Georgia, going up against Alabama, and if he lost those battles, people would be upset. And I can understand wanting to win the battles. But you also have to understand, who did you lose that battle to? Ohio State, okay, we know what Larry Johnson is. Alabama, Freddie Roach is one of the best defensive line coaches in the nation, and he was just tabbed as the #1 recruiter in the nation, and he does so with that Alabama logo on his helmet, giving him even more legitimacy. And then you have Georgia, and it's impossible to argue with what Georgia is doing right now. Now, does that diminish what Todd Bates can do on the trail? No. But there are levels of nuance that we have got to acknowledge that can help explain why decisions are made and why they go the way they do. So at the end of the day, this is a phenomenal addition for OU. It absolutely hits a need, and as we started this video out, it answers a question. And in recruiting, that's the name of the game. You have got to answer questions. Jayden Jackson starts to answer a question. Now, the next question I have, who's next? And that's something I need for all of you to answer. Hop down below, let me know. Before we get out of here, what does this mean for Oklahoma's class? Well, it puts them within the top 30 recruiting classes in the nation, specifically coming in at number 27, and that's a fantastic place to be. You have 13 guys in the class, so plenty of room left to go, and some huge names still on the board, like a David Stone, like a Winery, and Oklahoma looks to be in phenomenal positions for both of those battles, something we're going to have to keep up with, but y'all know the drill. Gotta hear from y'all. Let me know who you think answers the next question. That's it. See ya.